Hello, I'm Chris, the Tabletop Fox, and welcome to my video on Halo Flashpoint. In this series, we'll be having a look at the Banished faction, and going through their units and seeing how they're performing in Season 1. In this video, we're going to have a look at the Jiralhanae Chosen Warrior. So, following on from the Captains, this is our other standard Banished Tactician model at the moment. He's a decent bit cheaper than them, coming in at 41 points. So a whole 14 points cheaper than the cheapest captain. And how does he differ to those captains to see if those 14 points are more worth it for the captain or for the chosen warrior? To start off, we'll touch on the tactician. They are exactly the same. They're both tactician 1, so there's no difference in taking the captain or the chosen warrior in how much tactician you get. Stat-wise, he has a 5-up range, so he's not as good at shooting as the captains. He does have a 4-up fight, so he's equal there. A 5-up save, again equal. A 1-2 movement, so he's the same base speed, but he's a bit slower on his main speed. And then he has 1 shield and 1 armor, which is again 1 less than the captain's. Finally, add on to that, his HP is only 5, which is still a very good number, but the bare minimum for a brute at the current, and 1 less than the captain. Though that still makes him quite tough to kill. It does, however, make you start to look at whether having that health pack is worth the 5 points it currently is. So there's a fair bit you lose out for 14 points there. So is there anything he adds in to make him stand out from the captains as not just a downgrade for cheaper points? Well, he does get an extra keyword. Of course, he does have imposing as well, but the other keyword is guarded. And we've touched on this with the Gunganir in the past. And what guarded does is it means that range attacks against this model that target the model specifically, so not attacks that target the cube, such as frag weapons or incendiary, do not get crits against him. So that means if someone shoots you with a normal ranged weapon, they don't get their crit 8s. Or if, say, a Deadeye shoots you with his DMR and gain crit 7s, he's not getting crit any's. So this is a really good defensive keyword to have, especially if you want to keep their shooting units at range from you, or even if you're coming closer to those range units to get into melee and they're trying desperately to get rid of you. It can also make enemies getting the pin off on you a bit harder because even though they have the higher chance, at least then they're not getting crits on it, so you have the advantage there. So it does bring up his toughness versus the captain a decent bit. As mentioned, the captain has 1 more shield, 1 more armor, and 1 more HP. So, equivalent to about 3 dice. Now, you're probably not getting 3 dice taken off with these crit 8s and crit 7s being removed, but there's a chance you can. And the stronger the weapon, the worse it is. This against the Spartan Laser is really bad for the Spartan Laser, because that can take a lot of damage potential off it. Now, what else does the Chosen Warrior bring? Well, his melee is the standard knockback, so that's good there. As we've mentioned plenty of times with the brutes, that unlethal knockback is incredibly good because you can get into melee, tie them up, keep them stuck in there, and then that makes you harder to kill, in truth. Because if it's an opponent model that they probably don't want to actually frag, they can't really get you a frag easily without risking damaging or pinning up their own guy. And shooting into you comes even worse because now they don't get crits and they're -2 dice. So him getting into melee can be incredibly useful for you and incredibly problematic for the opponent. So having that knockback with no lethal is brilliant on it. Weapon wise, now as we mentioned, he hits on 5s, so he's not going to be the best in shooting. So he's got a sentinel beam. Now this is an interesting weapon. It's range 6, so it's got good coverage, which is good for him with his slowness. It then has Lethal 1, AP 1, and Continuous Fire. So against units that have no shields, this is not too bad. It doesn't get optics, it doesn't get those extra dice or extra crits, but it's decently solid. At range 6, you're unlikely getting clear shot, you might have height, so you're not getting a huge amount of dice. But then it has Continuous Fire, which is giving you those 2 rerolls, which is helping make up for that 5 shoot stat. So while it's not going to set the world on fire or do anything incredible, it's not terrible as a fallback weapon if you just need to shoot something. The one issue is continuous fire on a 5-up save is a good chance you're taking a wound, which then makes your melee a bit less effective, especially when you want to try and keep them in the cube, and if they leave, you're having 4 dice because of imposing, and if you're wounded, they're getting 4 dice at least. So it gives them a higher chance of getting away, even though usually you'll still be in the advantage with that 4-up fight. The other weapon is he comes with a spike grenade. So this gives him a form of frag, which is great. You can pretty much ignore the sticky, because you cannot rely on it with a 5-up, because getting 3 5-ups on 3 dice is an achievement in itself. So don't rely on that. Don't even take count for it having sticky. It might happen at some point. Just don't forget about it when you actually do 1 in a million and get those 3 5s. However, it's frag 4 and AP 1 only after the sticky, so even if they've got no shields, it's not that likely to do too much killing, but at least that's on 4-ups then, and it's a decent amount to try and get a pin off of it. So his base weapons, not anything special, but they can work. They're not useless, they're not terrible. But you probably want to give him something to give him a bit more use. Now, the 2 main ones to look at are either a spanker or concussion rifle. So the concussion rifle is just a range 5 grenade weapon, so you don't need line of sight, which is great if you get pinned up behind a wall and just unpin and shoot it off. And also if you're going last, it's great to combine with a shoot dice just to try and pin up some enemy models before the start of the next round, which you're probably wanting the Chosen Warrior to go last with that tactician so that you don't lose it. So it's a good combo. The other is a spanker. Now this has the advantage that he has got an okay shooting profile and he can go get people stuck in melee. And that is because the Spanker's 2 use can actually be a benefit to a Chosen Warrior. Because when it runs out, it gives the opponent this hard decision of, do I kill the Chosen Warrior and get rid of that tactician, but then he gets his Spanker back, or do I not kill him so he gets a bit less lethality because he's not got a Spanker anymore, he's just using the Sentinel Beam or trying to get into melee, but then they've constantly got their attack, and if they run it with something like elites, that means they can always hold on to reinforcements, which is a scary prospect. So this combo is really good at just screwing with your opponent's mind and making them have a hard decision that goes kind of in your favour either way a lot of the time. So combine that with, items wise, you're usually looking at more survival here. He's not like the captains where there's a bit more wanting to get into melee and movement. You're just really looking at the drop wall to get those extra shields and just make him harder to kill in the first place. Active camo, because he's also one, especially if you're running a Spanker and he's run out, where you probably don't mind not shooting and just keeping him as attack and moving around the board. And an overshield can always throw on there. While it's not the most useful, it's a point now, so if you've got the spare points, just throw one on and give him a second shield. Especially if you combine it with a drop wall, he's now got 4 shields. And if they don't have, say, sticky or EMP, that's going to be a right pain to do anything to him with. But in general, he's a solid choice to add into a list, especially to support elites wanting to do their reinforcements. I wouldn't say he's as good as a captain for actually going as a strong use piece. So if you were going with a heavy brute list, I'd probably go captains over, just because the captains have got more functionality and a better overall in that case. But as a filling piece to get tactician for the elite, he's a great option. And he can do a decent job of holding up the opponent, holding down the objective, and keeping the tactician so that the elites can keep coming back and they can add in extra uses. So while you only be a 3-man, you might get 1 or 2 more uses of an elite in a round, which then makes you into a 5-man with 4 really good activations if it's that case. And that's very strong. So if you want to run elites and with tactician and you want to really stack out the elites, the Chosen Warrior is probably one of the better ways to go over the captains. The captains are, though, a bit more of a useful activation overall, so it's just down to preference of what you want from the list from the 2. But they are both solid choices for bringing that tactician into a list. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if there's anything you disagree with in my thoughts about the unit, or anything you think I missed, please feel free to let me know in the comments. But with that, I've been the Tabletop Fox. I hope you have a lovely day, and ta-ra!